All right, for this first Meet the Artist presentation, I'd like to introduce you to an artist named Paul Klee. Um, Paul Klee is, well, to spell the last name for you there, it's Klee, and that you would think that would be pronounced Klee, but it's more accurate perhaps to say Clay. He was born in Switzerland, and actually he died in Switzerland as well. So his nationality was Swiss. He was born in a city called Bern, Bern, and he was born in 1879. He died in 1940. To give you some context of the history that that he lived through, he died right before right around the time right before World War II. So. Now, Klee was an extremely important and influential artist, but he oftentimes worked alone, and a lot of his ideas are just very unique. Like, no other artist seems to have worked in the way that Paul Klee did. And now, the first page is it's not one of his artworks, but it's an example of one of these notebooks that he kept. And at the top, you can see page 178, and on the top right, 179. He was a lecturer, and as you can see on the page on the right, he was interested in color theory. So you might think at first glance, like, what could possibly, color is color. What could you need to know about it? And Paul Klee sort of devoted his life to the study of color. In fact, that's probably the single most important element of art in Paul Klee's artistic work. So in the first artwork here that I'll show you, it's a painting. It's called the Twittering Machine. I guess that has a different sense now because we have this social media called Twitter. But Twitter being like a verb that a sound that birds make. And it's a machine. You can see the hand crank on the left hand or the right hand side there, and there look like four birds, or kind of like stick figure type birds. And again, so this I believe would have been watercolor. I can see some evidence at the top right that it looks like a pool of watercolor that had dried. Paul Klee worked a lot with watercolor, but he also worked with different like acrylics and oil paints as well. But just look at the painting and just think about how it makes you feel, and think about just look at it with as open mind as you can. Look at the colors. It's a whimsical painting, and by that I mean it's not too serious. It doesn't take, he's not, I don't know how to put it. It's very childlike. In fact, Paul Klee mentioned that one time he went back when he was an older, when he had grown up, he went back to his house and he found all the paintings that he did when he was a child, and he was blown away at his talent. He thought that what he did when he was a kid was as good as what he was doing as an adult. And so there was something about this his artwork, this magical quality that I think childlike quality that he tried to capture as an adult. So keep that in mind as we look at these next couple paintings. Well, I should also mention the Twittering Machine was painted in 1922. Okay. And then the next painting here. With these Meet the Artist presentations, I'm not too worried about you remembering the dates or the names of the paintings. It's enough if you just know roughly when they were painted. And I would rather you just look at the painting with an open mind and try not to just memorize dates or anything like that. Just appreciate the paintings for what they are. And now just look at this one. This is perhaps one of my very favorite paintings of all time. In fact, on the I have on my Meet the Instructor page here at Trekka, this is my very favorite artwork right here, and I just love it. There's clouds up in the sky, and there's birds, and it looks like a nighttime scene. But then there's one bird that looks like he's hanging upside down off a cloud, and there's the moon that looks like it's just sitting on a plant, and there's just something so magical and surreal about this. I love it. It creates like an environment of really odd environment that seems somehow charming and I don't know, like I want to visit this place. But it's part of this. He was going into his own brain, into his own psychology and tapping into what his probably some of that. Remember going back to the childlike memories and stuff. So this next painting here looks like interesting painting of, look at the color though, the contrast, the way that the color of the fish contrasts against the darkness of the background, and then those lines that sort of give a kind of sense of rhythm. Now, maybe it might be kind of odd to think of rhythm in a sense of painting, but nonetheless, it's a definite element, or it's a principle of design, rhythm. And so keep in mind here, look in the corners, it's almost like there's a border of smaller fish, and the center is just black so that it contrasts against the color of that fish in the middle. Very interesting work. The next one, now Paul Klee was interested, he painted a lot of cities. And the cities that he painted became sort of more and more abstract as time went on. So this one, you can tell it's a city. It looks like could be a castle. It's got a flag on the top, perhaps a castle wall. There's some trees. Something as simple as these trees, for example, like look at the branches. They're reduced to lines that just don't, trees don't look like this. But the way that he reduced the tree to a certain elements and principles, that way that he reduced it that's the art of it. It's like one interpretation of a tree in language of art and design, or principles of design and also elements of design. So this one has a certain eerie feel in my mind. Now the next one, definitely wonderful as well. This one, some of his paintings have this element of adventure, and this looks like a ship that's out at sea, and the color and there's something about these like thin lines, and some of this is just, putting it into words is just impossible. It's you just kind of almost feel it. You get a sense of it creates such a serene and odd place that you almost like you're in a dream. This next one here, to be honest, well, I see fish and stars, and we can wonder what this thing is in the center. I have not figured it out, but I just look at the way that the colors. Now this is an example of some of his mastery of color. It might on your first look at it, and I should also mention, put this video in a full screen mode. For all these Meet the Artist presentations, I'd ask that you watch the video in full screen mode and put it on HD, at least 720p. You can go in the right hand corner, there's it looks like a gear. Just click 720p down there if it's not already, so you can see it in high quality. But this is an example of some of his mastery of color. Just look at these shifts in the tone of these colors. Might not, your appreciation for it might grow as you see more and more of his artwork, but he's definitely had like a mastery over subtle shifts in color. And the next one, this is more just an abstract work where he's exploring color itself. Although maybe he had something specific in mind as he painted this, I don't know. But this is, again, one of his color studies. And the next painting here, one of his most famous, actually. This is, again, very childlike. Just a perfect circle for a head, and the neck is just a rectangle. Basic shapes, and the colors. I'm not sure how accurately the colors are represented here, but again, masterful use of color and Very interesting artwork. Creates a think about how the artwork makes you feel again. It's not all about what this doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense, you know. Art doesn't make sense in a certain way. It kind of hits you, you know. Like think about your the difference between how do I want to put this? It looks like nonsense, but if you look at it with an open mind, you can feel something. And that's what I'm going to try to emphasize in these Meet the Artist presentations. Now, in this last artwork, this is, again, a city, but it's more abstract. So it's just basic shapes, and you see the sun, or it looks like the sun overhanging. And then you see roofs because you get the idea from the triangles, but it's just abstracted to the most basic shapes and colors. So, again, really wonderful. So this, I hope you enjoyed it. This is my very first Meet the Artist presentation. There will be many more, and look forward to it.